This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan. And in for Amy this morning, Kristen McQueary from the Chicago Tribune editorial board. Yesterday, GOP appropriators in the House floated a continuing resolution that included $5 billion in border wall funding. So the question is, will they move on this and give lie to Nancy Pelosi's pronouncement that Trump doesn't have the votes to pass border wall funding in the House? Will House Republicans stand by President Trump's border wall funding or bust position? For an answer to that question and more, we're pleased to be joined by our friend, Wisconsin Republican Congressman Sean Duffy. Sean, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
It is great to be with you, Dan. Thanks for having me on. And Kristen, good morning to you as well.
Good morning.
So the answer, will you stand behind President Trump's border wall funding or bust position?
Well, I got to tell you, it was fascinating to watch Nancy Pelosi tell the president that Republicans don't have the votes in the House to pass a border bill with $5 billion in it. I mean, who is Nancy Pelosi to try to read what's going to happen in the Republican conference? I would just note that she's not that well liked and doesn't come to our meetings. So the answer is this: yes, we have the votes in the House to pass a budget bill with $5 billion for a border wall. And what's going to happen is, as we're butting up to Christmas and we're butting up to a new Congress when Nancy takes over, the question becomes, do we just want to pass that bill right now, or do we want to wait until next week as we still try to negotiate with the Senate to find some compromise on some deal that would give us border security? And we opted to say, listen, let's still try to negotiate. We don't have to do it this week. Let's see if we can cut a deal with, Chuck in the Senate and see if we can still pass something that keeps the government open.
But you do have to do something before the 21st. Is that right?
True. So that's true. So when we're going to leave Congress today, we'll have votes at 11:30 Eastern time, and then we're on 24-hour notice, is what Speaker Ryan and Kevin McCarthy told us. Next week we'll come back at some point, whether it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Hopefully we'll have a deal with the Senate, and if not, we're going to pass our bill with the $5 billion in it, and it's going to pass. And then we'll wait and see what happens.
What's the conversation within caucus like regarding the possibility of this, quote unquote shutdown if Senate Democrats won't play ball?
So there, a lot of us in the House love the president's policies and what he's trying to do. He has a Republican in the Senate always haven't loved the president as much as the House. I think there's a little bit of frustration where the president's saying, I'll take the blame. He's saying he'll take the blame in the meeting with Chuck and Nancy. And the truth is, most Americans want border security. They look at the caravans coming up from South America, and they want us to make sure that we Americans say who comes in. We want to make sure we keep bad people out. As I'm sure in Chicago, like northern Wisconsin, drugs, meth, and heroin are killing our communities. It all comes across the southern border. So Americans want border security. And if Chuck and Nancy can't offer up $5 billion to start that project up, I think most Americans would think they're out of touch. So if the president was saying, I'm going to take responsibility, my point was, no, Mr. President, this is Chuck's problem that he's not willing to take responsibility for doing what America wants, which is securing the border. And this back to me just one other point. I thought it was fascinating to see this fight take place, where we have this amazing access to see the negotiations go on between, Chuck and Nancy and the president. We normally don't see that kind of content. And what became abundantly clear for me is Nancy Pelosi is trying to be the speaker. And the way it works is in your conference, so that's all the Democrats in the House, they get a vote for the speaker. And to win, you only need a majority of the Democrats. On January 3rd, you need a majority of the whole Congress. So Republicans get a vote as well. And so it's easy to get a majority of Democrats. It's way harder to get a majority of the whole House. She doesn't have the votes yet to get 218 votes, which is half the House plus one. 435 is a full House. So she's actually strategizing I can't let the border wall funding, which is good for America, pass. Because if it does, I won't become the speaker. So normally she might try to cut a deal with the president, but because she's looking out for her own speaker race, she can't cut a deal with the president because she then won't be the speaker. And so, again, she's looking out for Nancy, not for America.
Could you talk about why a government shutdown is still has leverage? I know Mitch McConnell doesn't like it. Maybe it's an optics thing, but I mean, from past shutdowns, all essential services continue: air traffic control, law enforcement, power grid maintenance, Medicaid payments, Social Security payments. Maybe we're going to miss out on national parks, and I'm not going to one over the holiday break. But why is that? Why does that continue to be a subject that really does have resonance within the Republican Party?
So, Kristen, you sound like my wife. Actually, she was saying the same thing to me. What? Who cares? Because
exactly.
America gets a joke. The government still runs, right?
Shut it down every Tuesday.
Right. But I do think that Americans want their government to work, and they want their Congress to work, right? I mean, they really do, and they think, come on, you guys should be able to figure this stuff out. And so I think just on the functionality of the institution, people get really frustrated by that. And then if those the essential services, you're right, do run, but those, employees who do get shut down, people over Christmas, CNN will run stories and say, aren't Republicans cruel? We have government employees who aren't going to get paychecks. And we all know that they're going to get time off. They're not going to have to come to work. And by the way, they're going to get paid for that time anyway.
Exactly.
It's usually a pretty good deal, but it doesn't matter. That's the messaging that will come out from the left. And one of the points people get frustrated with the Congress, but the Congress is a representation of the people as a whole, and you've seen the country become far more divided on politics. We now have, avowed socialists that are like, listen, this is what we want America to be. That was never the case, 15, 20 years ago. And then we have a harder right. And so as America has become divided, so too has the people they have sent to the Congress to try to work together. And though they get frustrated, they're the ones who also have, can't sit at a Christmas dinner or a Thanksgiving dinner and have a conversation about politics because they get so mad. They're like, but why doesn't the Congress get along?
Before we let you go, I wanted to get any insights you care to offer what the conversation is like within the House Republican caucus about impeachment in the new year with, against the backdrop of the Cohen sentencing yesterday and everything else that's swirling around the president.
I'll tell you this. So I was a former prosecutor and I was a lawyer. And when you write a contract, the person who has the pen is always very confident in the language. The person who didn't write the contract is always skeptical of what was put in the contract by the other guy. There's a lack of trust there. And I think Democrats, as we held the pen, didn't always trust us to do things that we think they should have, been in agreement on. Maybe they'll think, okay, now that we have the pen, we could, put our own fingerprints on legislation and, we can work together and pass bills that are in the mainstream of American ideas. That's my hope. But I gotta tell you, Dan, as the more I'm on financial services, Maxine Waters is going to be my ranking. She's going to be my chairwoman now. Yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't think they're going to try to legislate. They're going to try to investigate and impeach the president. And they can have at it, but that's not what the American people want. We learned that when Republicans tried to impeach Bill Clinton. They want you to govern. And so I think there'll be a backlash and they'll have a hard time keeping the House going down that path. And if I can just tell you one insight I have, I was in the class of 2010 when we had this huge wave, and John Boehner tried to say, listen, let's try to have some guardrails on what we're doing. Let's not go to the far right wing. We won't get it done because Barack Obama is the president. We still have the Democrat Senate. Let's try to use our power in the House to get as much as possible. And our conservative base, which I was one of, was like, listen, we need to, we need to go further. We need to go harder. And Boehner would be like, no, listen, we're not going to win if we do that. And you get a lot of pressure from the people back at home who support you. I saw that in 2010. We came into 2011. The left-wing base is so riled up that even if Nancy Pelosi from San Francisco tries to contain the energy in her new Democrat socialist members, she will not be able to do it because they'll go home and say, I thought you were going to impeach the president.
Right.
I thought we were going to defund ICE. This is going to be a radical movement, and Nancy Pelosi is going to be seen as the moderate of this movement. And imagine that. And I think it's not going to play well. And put your seatbelts on. It's going to be a ride.
He is Sean Duffy, congressman from the 7th District in Wisconsin. Sean, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan and Kristen, have a great morning. Thanks for having me on.
You too. Take care. Good luck. And you joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
This is